President Trump just about broke the internet this weekend when he tweeted this. Terrible. Just found out that Obama had my wires tapped in Trump Tower just before the victory. Nothing found. This is McCarthyism. Well, the media pounced immediately. They claimed that the president has no evidence that Obama ordered any spying on Trump Tower. President Obama denied ordering any spying on Trump, but his wording was pretty careful not to deny knowing of any spying. Here to discuss, attorney and Washington Times chief legal affairs reporter Alex Swoyer. Alex, good to see you. Thanks for being with us today.
Good to see you too.
And we're hearing a lot about FISA courts and how wiretapping is done. But before we get into the specifics of this case, Obama potentially, I guess, tapped into the phones and explained to us, non-attorney types, I guess, how FISA warrants work and how those warrants are then granted.
So typically it's an intelligence official, either from the FBI or the NSA, that petitions the FISA court and shows some sort of probable cause to believe that an individual is acting as a foreign agent or a foreign spy. And so if there is enough probable cause, then the judge at the FISA court will grant the warrant and then the surveillance can begin.
So my understanding is that 99% of times when these warrants are ordered, they are fulfilled. Is that true?
Yeah, you're actually right. I was looking into this over the weekend, and in 25 years, the FISA law was first passed in 1978. And in a 25-year period, there was 18,000, a little more than 18,000 FISA warrants granted. Only 4 were denied. And I think there was 200 that were actually modified. And I've seen some reports out there that this alleged warrant in terms of against Trump Tower or Donald Trump, we aren't sure exactly what the specifics are because we aren't able to see it. But where we found out that, it was at least once or maybe even twice that it had to be modified, which tells me as a lawyer that there was a little bit of a potential for a fishing expedition, that the judge initially didn't think that there was enough probable cause there to grant the warrant.
Title 50, Section 1802 establishes presidential authority. The president, through the attorney general, may authorize electronic surveillance. Doesn't this mean that all FISA requests are inherently via the president?
Well, whenever anyone says that a president can order this sort of warrant or can order wiretapping to be done, it was in 2008 that there were new amendments to the FISA Act put into place, and so technically it has to come from a FISA court, and so there does have to be a judge order involved. So most of my sources I've talked to, former law enforcement and a former DOJ prosecutor, says it's pretty impossible that President Obama would not have known about it. However, there did have to be a federal judge that had this some sort of warrant granted.
But is it true that the Attorney General has to personally review every single FISA application?
Usually they say that somebody from the DOJ, along with the member of the intelligence, whether it's the NSA director or the FBI, usually they're working together on this and they petition the court, is what, from my research that I've found. Now, the problem I've run into is when I talk to a lot of people about this, especially this former DOJ prosecutor that I spoke to over the weekend as well as today, he kind of told me that it's just so secret. The problem is that it's dealing with intelligence and classified information. That's why we don't really get to see anything that goes into the FISA court. It's hard to tell if this is being abused because it's really not made public. And I think that's what we're going to end up running into, with this investigation. Hopefully members of Congress can see the FISA warrant so they can at least have some sort of, level of clearance where they're able to tell us what was on it.
Right. So because the left is making this also simple because they just like to push Trump into a corner. And they're saying, well, if Trump would just declassify the FISA, then this particular FISA, then all the questions would be answered. But it's not that simple, is it? Because there could be a lot of things in there that shouldn't be released to the public, including some security risk type things and including maybe even just things that are personal, right?
Right, and I think that you're right. The left is going to attack him if he doesn't declassify it, and then there also would attack him if he did declassify it. just for the reasons that you presented, that it contains classified information. We don't know exactly what the details are. We don't even know, actually, there's been, some reports out there that it was targeting a server. Was the server in Trump Tower? Was the server in, there was one report that said it was in Philadelphia. We don't know. So I think it's something that there's just a huge question mark put over this story, and it just keeps getting honestly weirder, especially with the FBI director coming out and allegedly making these statements, wanting the DOJ to come out and publicly, dismiss President Trump's claims. Something doesn't sit right. So I'm expecting more news to come out of this later this week, potentially out of the DOJ.
Isn't it possible, too, that the reason President Trump doesn't do that is because he doesn't trust the bureaucracies? He doesn't have his people in place yet. The bureaucracies under Obama have already proven they're perfectly willing to target innocent conservatives, even Tea Party groups, for example. Why in the world would they not take this opportunity to somehow paint President Trump in a negative light, even if there weren't really anything to paint?
Yeah, and I think I definitely agree with you. I think that you're right. One of the things I found, if I want to share it with you, that I think your audience will be kind of alarmed with is, even if it's found that some official within Obama's administration, whether it's the FBI, NSA, petitioned the FISA court and was able to get this warrant and, wiretap Trump Tower, as what we've been told by President Trump happened, it isn't necessarily illegal. It obviously was done with, we can say, I guess, take into consideration that the motive might have been purely political. And so that doesn't necessarily break any law. And I asked, would there be any sort of repercussions for this person? And I was told, well, possibly he could lose his job.
Wow.
I'm like, well, I thought that was pretty alarming. I think most people out there would think that if you went to a court for a fishing expedition for political reasons, that there should be some sort of legal repercussions.
Darn, I have like 100 more questions for you now, Alex, but we're out of time. We'll have to have you back again soon. Catch her stuff at the Washington Times up next.